In this video, I'm going to make rectangles for our compositional thumbnails, and I'm going to make them in proportion to my canvas size. You don't have to do this exactly, but in case you do want to do it exactly, I want to show you that process. So you need any kind of paper. I just use, inexpensive printer paper that I buy in reams. You need a straight edge, so you can use a book, any book, for a straight edge, or if you have a ruler, that's great. I like these triangles as well, especially when they're see-through, because they can help us get straight lines and, lines at the right angles. So my canvas that I'm using, I always do this kind of backwards. I know what size canvas I'm going to be working on before I do my compositional thumbnails. So I know I'm working on an 8x6 inch canvas. And to get it proportionally, obviously I don't want to do 8x6 inch drawings. Of course you could do full size drawings, but let's say you're doing a really big canvas. It's nice to do small compositional sketches because this is really about just figuring out the composition. You want them to be small and quick and easy to draw. So you don't want to be doing big complicated drawings that take up a lot of time. So I'm just going to divide by half both of these numbers and get 4x3 thumbnails, okay? And I just call them thumbs. So 4x3 thumbnails. Let's say you have an 8x10 canvas. You're gonna divide these by half, so that would be 4x5 thumbnails. And if you have an even bigger canvas, you can keep going down and down. You can Google it too, like say proportional canvas sized, to get it. There's all kinds of free calculators online. So you don't have to do the math if you don't want to. Okay, so we're doing 4 compositional thumbnails, and I want you to practice your compositions in both portrait and landscape. So I'm gonna turn this over so I have enough room. So I'm gonna do the 2 landscape sizes up here. And the reason I like these triangles is because I can line up to the edge of the paper and know that I'm making right angles and straight lines that are gonna make a nice rectangle for me. So one other trick I like to show students is when you're measuring, when you make a line, and if it's just like a straight line, lining up with that, it could go off to this side, it could go off to this side, and you don't really know exactly where it is. Now this doesn't need to be mathematically perfect, but I learned in doing woodworking that if you make like a little arrow, then you know right in between there is where your mark is. So I'm gonna do 4 inches this way, and then while I'm here, I have this side lined up with the paper. Let me just reline it up. And I'm going to make my 4-inch line, and I'm just going over a little bit. And then I can measure 3 inches here, making my mark where 3 inches will be. And now I'm lining up with the edge of this paper, and my ruler is going right in between in the middle of that arrow that I made. So that's another reason it's easy to do those little arrow marks. So that's my 3-inch line. I'm gonna measure here for 3 inches too. And so I have my 2 marks that I know are 3 inches. I'm lining up with the side of the paper, and then my ruler is going in the center of those 2 marks. And if they're not exactly the same, you can kind of average it out where it would be just about in the center. And since I'm lining it up with the side of the paper, I know I'm making those right angles. And then I can flip this over and get the last one in. Lining up with the paper. Okay, so this is landscape orientation. And that's because typically in painting, landscapes would be done this way, like horizontally, like the longest side is the top and bottom, and then portraits were the other way. And this is, if you do digital stuff, you might know something about this. So with portraits, I'm gonna mark where my 0 line is. I'm gonna have the 4 inches going this way. Get my line there. And then the 3 inches going this way. And let me just get a line across. I'm using I'm lining this up with the side of the paper, so I'm not doing the other mark. And then lining this up. Okay, I know I'm saying it doesn't have to be perfect, and then I'm taking too much time. Okay, and so this one is portrait eye orientation. Okay, so I'm gonna do another landscape one here, another portrait one here, so I can try out my compositions in all different arrangements and see what's gonna work best for the final painting. So get your 4 rectangles made. If you just wanna eyeball it, you can do that. And this is a great straight edge, you know, just any book can just go like that and create your rectangles and kind of guess what the proportion would be, similar to the proportionality of your canvas.